With our mailbag show tonight. We answer your questions going into a big week where we have some big names coming up. JC Cora, Jason Bell, and David Sampson returns. So let's answer your questions tonight on this edition of Locked On Astros.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Astros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can you find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive. Positive. I love when our fans ask us questions. Always Stros.
All right, guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen. Whether it's on YouTube, make sure you go and keep on subscribing and give us a big fat thumbs up if you like our content. And go ahead and make comments. And we do like hearing your positive feedback and sometimes whatever else as well. But this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. And make sure you make the Locked On podcast your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Go and check us out there as well. So we're going to go ahead and answer your questions. We put out early today mailbag, and we got a whole bunch of responses. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about some quotes from the TriStar autograph or collectible show, whatever you call it. We got some quotes from David Ortiz and then Chaz McCormick. And if we get to it, we have some pretty interesting information from the book Winning Fixes Everything about Alex Cora from the Boston Herald. So we'll go and talk about that as well. But let's go ahead and get to some of the questions. And I know we want to start the show with kind of a question from Scott Waldo. He says, will our catching prospects surprise everyone and be really good this year? Or will we have to go out and trade for somebody? So I think that it all really depends. I'll go and answer this first, but just it depends on spring training. I think whoever has the better spring training, whether it's Yainer Diaz or if it's going to be Corey Lee, one of those guys is going to have a heck of a spring training. And I think it's going to be Lee to get started because he is the better catcher. Diaz is probably the better hitter. So I think Lee's probably has the upper hand for right now. And I think with what he saw after his cup of tea with the Astros last year, I think he's probably going to have the upper hand when it comes to spring training. But Diaz could come in and just light the world on fire and say, this is my job now.
Yeah, exactly. I think right now that is the right avenue to take. It basically is what happens in spring training. Diaz, we know, can hit. Diaz, we know, can play more than a couple positions. He can DH. And I think with Diaz being able to DH, that might give him a little bit of a leg up. But Corey Lee is their top catching prospect. And so it is going to be up to the Astros, the pitching coaches. Martin Maldonado definitely will have some say in it. And really what the players do on the field, it's really up to them. You'll hear from players between now and spring training, this is my job to lose. This is my job to gain. There's more than one position that's not necessarily open, but there's more than one option there. And so I think Diaz has a leg up, Eric, offensively because he can DH, but I think they like what Corey Lee offers behind the plate. But let's let the kids play, and I think it's going to be a fun competition this spring training.
And I think that definitely, if you're looking at Daniel's question, we kind of addressed it. He says, will they trade for another catcher or trust a farm system? And unless you're going to go out and trade for somebody like Salvador Perez, if you're looking at, I believe his AAV was about 20 million per year for 3 years, and then you have the buyout on the 4th year, and you're going to have to give up a lot to get him. So if the Astros are willing to do that, then fine. But if you're looking at the free agent market, there's not a lot out there. Gary Sanchez, there's some few names out there that you may be willing to look at. But I think the Astros are going to give the kids a chance. So I think that you mentioned Carson Kelly's out there, but I
Well,
don't
he's not
know.
out there, right? Well, Carson Kelly's with the Diamondbacks, and
Yeah,
I
I know.
was just
Out there
looking at
trade.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I was just looking at catchers that had value. If you go to MLB trade values, they have the top 10 quote unquote highest value catchers. I mean, Carson Kelly doesn't have much. Salvador Perez has been kind of mentioned the last week or so, but his 20-something million dollar salary a year for the next 2 or 3 years, I think kind of puts him out of that conversation. And kind of coupled with this, Jay comes in, he's watching live, and he says, are there any decent prospects lurking in the lower minors? I know we have we have
the guy nicknamed the Tank, right?
Yeah, El Tanque is years off. We've got J.C. Correa number
Right.
one. We have Cesar Salazar, I believe, who has been up and down between Double A and Triple A, and there may be one or two other catching prospects, but there's no one right now that is really wowing us at this point to move up. But I think right now the catching question, yes, and I'm sorry, Luke Berryhill,
Yeah, I was
that's
gonna
a
say
great
Luke
pick
Barrett.
up there. Sorry about that. I just don't have the minor league list in front of me. They have about 4 or 5 catchers invited, and I do not think Bregman's younger brother is still in the. I don't think he's still with the Astros. I've heard he's not in the organization anymore. Um, TEJ Texas asked, but yeah. So to the farm system, we have some catching prospects. The problem um, is if you go trade for somebody, you have to give up assets,
Right.
So speaking of that, we have a question from Mr. Yama. He said Brown's first big move,
Hun- Oh yeah, go ahead.
trade or extension. What would be the trade and who gets extended and what's the contract? Well, I don't know if we can unpack all of that, but I can tell you that I think the first thing he's going to do is he's going to give an extension to somebody. I don't think a trade happens until the trade deadline if that's needed. The the problem with that is what do you have to trade away and who are you giving up? I think a contract extension happens. And Eric, you may have convinced me last time we talked because maybe it's not Tucker, but maybe somebody gets a contract extension either before spring training starts or in the middle of spring training. Don't you think that's the most likely move by Brown as an extension before a trade ever happens?
Yeah, I think that if they're probably talking, and I know that Brown is trying to organize probably a new scouting department and a new system for the Astros, but he's still trying to get his feet wet and trying to get everything going on. But I think that he's looking at Christian Javier and Framber Valdez probably first because they may be the easiest to extend. And as we see, Big Poppy, he has some good words for Farmer Valdez. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I think Farmer Valdez, if he's your ace, you need to go ahead and lock him up. Christian Javier, I know we have a question later about him. He needs to be a high priority as well. But Kyle Tucker, this is going to be a guy that could be the center of your lineup for years to come, even after Bregman's gone, even after hopefully Jose Altuve is one of the guys they extend for the rest of his career.
Right.
But Tucker could be the center piece of this lineup for years to come. So if you're going to ask me, is there extension or a trade first? I'm going to go ahead and say extension. I think that
Right.
one of the two pitchers is probably going to be really easy to do. And the Tucker, I'm not so sure that's going to be easy target. I think maybe next offseason, maybe not easier, but I think that they may get something done. So that's answer my question. But I do think that the Astros will make a trade at the trade deadline. There could be some weakness, whether it's at catcher, center field. We'll talk about Chas McCormick a little bit later in the show and kind of figure out what his thoughts on center field and everything at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only way that we are really going to be in the market for a big trade is if I'm thinking if there's an injury, Eric. But I think the most likely time to do one would be at the trade deadline. But look, all bets are off right now if you are looking to the Super Bowl because it is happening. Whether you like it or not, whether your team is there or not, and you're having a Super Bowl party, FanDuel is the place to go. It's America's number one sports book. We're excited about our new partnership with FanDuel. Locked On is America's number one sports book. Like I've said, they have just the best options. I mean, they make it fun. They've got great features. And if you're going to bet on Super Bowl 57, you can go with a no sweat first bet. You'll get the $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. That's right. You heard me right. If it doesn't win, you get $3,000 back in bonus bets. Let you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown, whether it's the first touchdown or the second touchdown. You can go crazy with it. FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So make sure that you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and make us your first listen on the way to work on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you check out your podcast. Make us your first listen. So I know Paul kind of asked this question. Do you know anything about the Astros 2023 jerseys? Will they be wearing advertisements? And he says, I'm hoping they don't go that direction. And for those of y'all that don't know, according to the CBA, they decided to go ahead and allow sponsorship on the jerseys, whether it just be a patch or something like that. But while we don't know officially from the Houston Astros, I did see on the Sports Baseball Journal or Sports Business Journal that they did say that according to their sources, they said that the Astros are going to have the Oxy Energy as the sponsor for their jerseys. So I don't know how much money that's going to involve or something like that, but I did see that. And so it's Occidental Energy. So that's going to be something that's they've been around since, I believe, 2014. They're a big sponsor for the Houston Astros anyway. So it makes sense that they are going to be a sponsor for the jerseys.
It's interesting that they go with an energy company, being that Enron was the first corporate sponsor of the Houston Astros. I don't know, just kind of funny how that works out. So in 2023, each MLB team is basically allowed to brand a logo. It's a 4x4 patch that they can wear on the sleeve and their on-field jerseys. What they're hoping with this is that this sponsorship opportunity is expected to drive millions in annual revenue for local teams. Again, this is what they all agreed to. So the big Oxy sign you see out in the outfield,
Right.
you may see that on their jersey. I know the Rockets have their Credit Karma logo on their jerseys. That's their big corporate sponsor. And a lot of people don't like this, but I remember years ago when all this corporate sponsorship stuff started, they said you're going to see Major League Baseball fields look more like minor league fields. Because what do minor league teams depend on? Sponsorships, because that drives up revenue. That gives them money to pay their players because they don't really generate a whole lot of revenue through ticket sales, where Major League Baseball generates all of their revenue through gate sales and ticket sales.
Right.
And so that is, I mean, look, Oxy Energy, I think that's a great thing. So
does that mean for the people that have been to Corpus to watch in Corpus, they when a player hits a home run, they pass around the bait buckets so you could put money in there for the player who hit the home run? Are they gonna start doing that at Minute Maid Park?
Well, I hope not. I hope not. When I was there, I didn't see any bait buckets passed around, but I saw plenty of corporate sponsors all over that stadium, even
Right.
local sponsors, which is really cool. But hey, Mike comes to us with a question, and Mike is a regular with our show. And again, we appreciate all y'all's questions. And most of these people we see you on with us live, if you're listening to us and you haven't watched us live, please check us out on YouTube. Mike says, do y'all, Eric and I, do y'all think Pedro Leon is going to put the bat together. Even if he does, is a league average bat and some decent defense worth what we signed for him? Now, before I answer that question, I went to the source, the man himself, Elvis Rodriguez, Astros hitting instructor down in the Dominican Summer League. He knows Pedro Leon. He's worked with Pedro Leon. And this is what he said. Right now, Leon is worth every bit of money. And once that click happens, he will be a five-tool player in the big leagues. Remember, we talked about him previously that he's not a natural hitter. And that is something he's still figuring out. But he is every much the five-tool major league player in the making that we expect to see.
Yeah, so he just got to put it together. So that's why the Astros have Chas McCormick right now, and that's why they're also trying Pedro Leon at shortstop. I mean, that was before the rise of Jeremy Pena, but I think they're going to give this kid time to mature, time to develop, and see what happens. So I don't think that this is a bad idea, and I think the future is bright with him, but it's going to take an injury for him to come up, and it's going to take they're going to wait till he doesn't strike out as much and he has better bat to ball skills. So
Yeah.
I would say at the earliest, unless there's an injury, he's going to be a September call up. Now, if Chas McCormick, we'll talk about what he has to say in a little bit about his future as a center fielder with Houston Astros.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's go ahead and go on to the next question. Manuel Arenado says, how long will the Astros dominance last? So before you talk, I think it's going to depend on what Dana Brown does. If he's able to extend Kyle Tucker, Christian Javier, and then Framber Valdez, and he's able to hold on to Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman, and what he's able to do with the next few drafts, that's going to really decide what happens. So I know Harley David says that the window is wide open. I think it really depends on what they do. But the big name, as Big Poppy says, you don't have Justin Verlander anymore. So you've got Framber Valdez. He's got to step up. He's got to be that ace. He's got to be that stopper. If you have the fifth guy, whoever that fifth guy is, or sixth guy, if he has a bad day, Framber Valdez has got to come in here and say, no more. This is my game today. And he's got to go out there and dominate. And then if Christian Javier, I'm going to go ahead and answer Steve Harden's question real quick. He says, where does Javier fit in the 2023 rotation? I think he may even pitch as high as second. But because I don't know if you go lefty righty, because if you have Framber Valdez as number one starter, there's no sense in going left, right, or anything like that. So I think McCullers, to maybe spread out the starts a little more, will get the third start. So let's go back to the window of dominance for you, Brett.
Yeah, I think I've always thought that the window dominance, and I was saying this at the beginning of last season. Y'all can go back and search the tape if you want, but I've always said till 2026 at least, just because there's no reason for me to think that before that there's any kind of decline. Take one of our stars, we will just do better next year. That's just kind of the theme of this team. And with Dana Brown, I've seen talking heads and even people at MLB Network, respected baseball writers, respected baseball journalists say, look, their window's open till 2028. Like this team shows no interest in regressing, shows no interest in going backwards. And they figured out, Eric, I mean, they moved up to 26th in the minor league rankings for minor league system, which is higher than last. But they keep finding a way. And now you've got a guy that's going to be focused on the draft, going to be focused on the development of players, not just analytically, but the eye test and what they look like. And does this guy look like a major leaguer? Is he a major leaguer? And basically taking a mixture of all these things. And I think Dana Brown is the guy to keep this ship going in the right direction. But more so than that, Eric, it's going to depend on the health of players. It's going to also depend on when players come to the end of their careers. If they don't have someone in the system, are they going to have the assets to go out and trade for players? Because the free agent market is a huge part of baseball. We have one of the most dominant lineups in all of baseball right now. We have one of the most dominant pitching staffs, both starting and relief pitching. And as long as we keep the pieces together, the core pieces, I see their dominance going to 2028. A lot of things have to happen. Also, other teams around you have to also falter a little bit. The Mariners have teamed up and have beefed up and are trying to beat the Astros. The Yankees have guys like Michael King talking a lot of smack for not ever having beat the Astros and actually having a really horrible record against the Astros in the playoffs, not to mention. But it's going to depend a lot on what other teams do and are doing.
All right, I have a special request that's not in our little list. You know who it's from, but this person says, "What rookie is most likely to have a Jeremy Pena-like breakout this season?" So I'll go ahead and let you answer this question.
What rookie is likely to have? I mean, it's going to have to be Hunter Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. David Hindley's not going to get the at bats. There's no other like position player really out there that's going to make a statement. It's going to have to be Hunter Brown.
Yeah. The only other person I could think of is maybe, barring an injury, David Hensley just steps into somebody's role and he just overachieves or something like that. Or maybe Pedro Leon figures it out in spring training and just no, actually, no, he's going to miss time with the hernia. I totally forgot about that. So his time's going to be delayed a little bit as well. So I guess you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. Corey Lee. I think Corey Lee's going to make that impact this year, and he's going to put his jaw the line in the sand that he's the catcher tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb there.
But if you're taking him to a Jeremy Pena level, that's a huge leap. Like I think Jeremy Pena did what everybody expected Jeremy Pena to do.
Well, we know what Hunter Brown can do. So
I know, but he hasn't. But I just if they still are trusting Martin Maldonado as much now that I think your I guess target or your sights are not off, but Corey Lee has to get a good amount of starts. He has to come out and they have to give him more than a start every 4 or 5 days. I mean, so that's why I just went to Hunter Brown because I think he has the highest he's most likely to get the most starts and most playing time this season. And I may be totally off, but that's just who I see.
Yeah. So and Arlie says it's going to be Jainer Diaz as well. So we'll have to see. And yes, I'm trying to say Jainer Diaz correctly. It's going to take me some time, but so it could be one of those catchers. So, but I guess I'm thinking more on lines of hitters. And so pitchers, yes, Hunter Brown is most likely going to have the most impact on the team. So let's go ahead and go to Ethan's question. He says, if there was a team to dethrone the Astros in the AL West or the AL for that matter, who has the best shot? I would say it's probably going to be like the Mariners.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Seattle Mariners are the team that is the strongest team outside of the Astros. Not the Rangers, not the Angels, definitely not the Las Vegas A's. I mean, they are pretenders. That the Rangers still have to bring up some of their guys, Jack Leiter, these other guys.
Right.
And it's just one of those things where you look at the Mariners and they smell blood in the water. They are the Sharks this year. And look, they got to the playoffs. And I think you and I believe that the Astros were going to like beat the Mariners. I didn't think they would sweep them, but I figured the Mariners would give them because I was like, maybe the Mariners and Astros is the real ALCS because the Yankees just didn't scare me at all. They had cooled off and they were kind of like yesterday's news, just like they always are. They get hot in June. And then, oh, by the way, when Michael King was talking about how the Astros can't beat them when they're on the roll, we beat them 2 out of 4 when they were on a roll, when they were predicted to win 120 games. I'm like, come on, dude. Come on. Dude, whatever with this amateur, like you're a pro, talk like a pro. Like own your mistakes, but go out and say, you know what, this year we're going to win the World Series. But don't say you can beat the Astros when you're rolling because they've never. I mean, what are they rolling? Are they rolling something that's altering their mind? Are they smoking something that they're rolling? Because they're definitely not playing when they're playing us.
Our producer Mark, I'll go and put his comment out here. He said you can put the AL All-Star team in AL West, and the Astros will still win the division by 11 games.
I
That's a
love that.
pretty bold comment because there's some pretty darn good pitchers on the AL
Hold on,
All-Star team.
that's from producer Mark. I love it. Producer Mark is in the background. Let's bring him up now, bro. Man, you chose violence with that
Oh
comment.
man, that's
So you're
because everyone
so you're
chose violence with us. Chose violence with us, so I'm just matching it. I'm just matching it.
There you go. Yeah, we love that, and that's why we brought Mark on with us. Always a great baseball mind alongside us, man.
Yeah, it's
Alrighty.
been a fun few years, but we're gonna continue the dominance.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
All right, so let's go ahead and go to speaking of all-stars, let's go ahead and go to this next comment.
Okay.
So this comes from JD Sports Radio. He says, Game 7, series on the line. Do you start Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens, Justin Verlander, or Randy Johnson, all of in their Astros top form in that game? So I know my
Me?
answer. Go.
You know your answer?
Go.
Okay. My answer is Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
Love Roger Clemens. Love Justin Verlander. Love Nolan Ryan. I'm going Randy Johnson. Randy Johnson, it is a crime still to this day that the 98 Astros got knocked out by Kevin Brown and the Padres in that playoff series. We got Randy Johnson for half a season, and we should have won the World Series. That was a great team. Randy Johnson was just so dominant. I saw him pitch when he was with the Mariners. I saw him pitch with the Astros. I saw him pitch with the Diamondbacks. Every time I saw him pitch, Eric, he looked like the same guy. This tall, lanky, just mountain of a man, just mowing down hitters. Randy Johnson's. And look, I don't know. Would you go with someone different? Would you go with the Roger Clemens or Nolan Ryan? Who would you go with on this list?
Randy Johnson.
Wow.
Not even thinking about it. I mean, I know that he got beat twice by not Hunter Brown. What's Kevin Brown? Yeah, Kevin Brown. I've got Hunter Brown in brain now.
It's all good.
But yeah, that was like close games in that series. But yeah, definitely that's something to think about. Now he says, what about the current Astros? Frommer, Javier, Garcia, Brown, or Urquidy? I would probably go Javier. I mean, Javier is probably the big game pitcher right now. I mean, we've seen him pitch a combined no-hitter. We've seen him rack up the strikeouts in the playoffs. And with Frommer, he's had some great games. We've also seen him had some clunkers, but I think he's becoming a more overall pitcher. He's becoming an ace that you can trust now.
Now, I would definitely go Javier in that situation just because of what he did this last year. I know a lot of people would go Framber. I wouldn't be upset with either one. Now, let me ask you this. Would you go with Roy Oswalt over someone like Justin Verlander? Because Roy Oswalt was one of the best pitchers because we're talking postseason.
Yeah.
Remember, Roy Oswalt clinched the Game 6 NLCS to take the Astros to their first World Series. I would probably put Roy O, the Wizard, in
talking postseason only, yes. Yeah. But if you're talking regular season, Verlander.
No, I'm talking postseason. Game 7 World Series. I'm going Roy O. Sorry, no offense, Justin Verlander. Loved while you were here. I still can't believe he's on the Mets.
Isn't it kind of weird that the Mets have been kind of known for choking in the playoffs, and now they have Verlander, who's been known to choke in the playoffs. So that's kind of a rough fit there. So Jace, John Summerman has asked if Dusty Baker is already the greatest manager in Astros history. That's kind of a deep topic. Maybe that's something we can dive into in another show. I know AJ Hinch has a World Series championship under his belt.
And I know some people like Gene Elston, who was manager of that 86 Astros team. I mean, look, there are Larry Durker did a fine job with the Astros, and I mean that guy was phenomenal. He's an Astros legend. You got 3 or 4: Elston, Durker, Hinch, and Baker. But I think if Baker can win another title, can go back to back. Now, the problem with that conversation, Eric, is they'll say, well, you could have given this roster to anybody and they could have won. But it's not
Right.
true because Dusty didn't win the first time he had it. Hinch only won one when he had it. So it's not an automatic that you win just because you have this roster, because they've been to 4 World Series. They won 2. They didn't win every one of them.
Right.
So the plug and play thing may not hold as much argument, but that's the argument I hear people say. Oh, well, Dusty was handed a good team. Kind of like Phil Jackson when he went to Lakers, he was handed a good team. Yeah, but you still got to be the coach. I think Dusty is one of the greatest managers to ever manage the game. And I think for all the heat and criticism he's taken in Houston, he's done a fine job.
Yeah, so I think that's all the questions we're gonna have time for. So I do want to get to kind of Big Poppy on Framber Valdez. He did say, to be honest with you, if I'm the Houston Astros, I would give the guy a 10-year deal right now. He here go and pitch because he loves the game. He loves pitching. He wants to be good. And then also he says on the Astros repeating as world champions, he's like, man, I'm telling you, these people are trying to turn out to be a dynasty. I would not be surprised. The only difference is Verlander is going somewhere else.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, Big Poppy respects the Astros. And he was like, who are the Yankees' daddy? I mean, he knows. He's been in there. He was in the heat of the battle with the great Red Sox Yankees playoffs, all those years when he was a part of that Red Sox team. But he respects the heck out of Jose Altuve. He respects the heck out of our players and what we've done. And of course, definitely with Dusty Baker. So Big Poppy, I think, has a lot of admiration for this
Right.
club, as I think a lot of people do secretly, even though they won't state it publicly.
Yeah. So, Chaz McCormick to kind of close out the show, and we may do a short post game show or post show, I guess I should say. And I guess I'm ready for games to start already. Spring training is coming around the corner, guys. I'm getting excited. But Chaz McCormick says, I've been working my butt off this season. Center field is my job to lose, but I'm going to go into spring training like I'm going to fight for a spot. It's an honor. Dusty gave me the spot last year at the end of the year. So he's not coming in saying, yeah, it's my job. All these other guys, they can just, they're not, they have no chance. He's going in like, yeah, I've got to fight for this. I've got to prove that I can, I earned it last year, but now I got to earn it again. And so that makes me, think that he's got a good head on his shoulders and everything. So that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. Make sure you tune in to us on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, and make us your first listen, and go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. And YouTube listeners, go ahead and stick around. We'll talk about the Alex Cora quotes from the Boston Herald, and we'll talk. If y'all have any more questions, go ahead and put it in the chat. And audio listeners, go ahead and go over to YouTube and go and hear the rest of the show. All right.
Hey, Eric, before we get into those quotes, I just want to say something about Chaz McCormick here. Chaz McCormick, I love him coming out and saying this. I love that he says the fact it's my job to lose. That shows me that he understands that he's got to continue to work. And that's the kind of mindset that has thrived in the Astros clubhouse. That's the mindset that Bregman, Altuve, McCullers, all the veterans that are here have instilled in these young players. And I absolutely loved hearing that. Chaz McCormick continues to become one of my favorite Astros players just as each day goes by, just because he puts in the work. And I mean, you can't say enough about his heroics in the postseason. Without his catch, without home runs, without that stuff, Chaz McCormick, I think, really was a key part of that. You know what I'm saying? So I absolutely loved hearing him say that. So let's get on to this book that I told you that I would actually go read. I'm gonna see if I can get a free copy though, because I don't know if I want to pay for it, but I guess I need to read this dribble.
Yeah, so I'm just going to start off with the highlights of it, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about a confrontation that apparently Cora had with Blum on a bus. And so there's just a lot of interesting things. But apparently, while Alex Cora was with the Red Sox, he made a comment that said, we stole the bleeping World Series.
Mm-hmm.
We knew the Astros did steal signs, but Alex Cora told us that he said that when they played the Dodgers, we already knew what everybody was throwing before we even got on base. We didn't even have to get on base. And everybody was like, what the heck does he mean? So basically, he was telling his Red Sox players that about the sign stealing system. And apparently, the book was not only about the Astros; it was about the other stuff too, like the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Dodgers, who are also bending the rules and everything too. But before we get started, what was your thoughts of that quote?
Well, look, I find it convenient. Look, everything I've heard about Cora from the players, they still love and respect him. So I have to take that into consideration. But without knowing that, it sounds to me like Cora's deflecting a little bit um, from the Red Sox because they committed some of the same crimes in Boston. I mean, and the reason why I say crimes is because that's what you would think the Astros did. You would think the Astros are like 10-time convicted felons. Like they have ruined, like baseball's never had anything dishonest happen before.
Right,
I just think like it's fine, whatever. All this stuff's going to come out, but at the end of the day, why don't we focus the same ire in books and interviews and investigation into the Red Sox? Like, I want to know what former Red Sox beat writers have a beef with the Houston Astros. And that to me is more and more what this seems to be like. Even though it's not about the Astros, it's like I'm not attached to you anymore. So I'm going to kind of tell on you. I'm going to tattle on the Houston Astros. That's what
right.
it comes across to me as.
Right. So apparently, the book goes on to say that Craig Biggio and Jeff Plum had Hinch's ear, and they kind of said, "Why do you have Alex Cora as your bench coach? He's going against you all the time." And Cora often lashed out at Hinch and screamed at him in the office. And Cora also got caught up in a confrontation on the team bus on the night of August 31st, 2017. Cora was allegedly drinking too much and had it out with Jeff Blum. And he didn't like the fact that Cora turned the music up whenever everybody was trying to call their families right after the hurricane. And he said, "Here's your buddy. You want him, Blum, to be your bench coach? You don't trust me? It's been like this all year." So basically, one member of the Astros told Drellick that he's been disenchanting the coaching staff. He blew up one day in the coach's office with AJ. "You expect me to do this stuff for 250 grand?" And he should have been fired a long time ago, Hinch said to other people. And so there's just a lot of stuff going on, and you have to go read the whole source. But basically, a lot of allegations that said that the players stuck up for Alex Cora. That's why Alex Cora stayed with the Astros, while Hinch and some of the other people did not really want him around.
And
So,
see, look, here's the thing, and here's what I'm gonna say about this, because to be fair, I wasn't there and I
right,
didn't see everything play out. The problem I have with this kind of reporting and this kind of stuff in a book is it only does one thing. It paints a grim picture, and there's not a single winner that comes out of this. Okay. There's to me, when there's an argument, there is a right answer and a wrong answer. Um, you can't both be right. You can't both be wrong. But it sounds like everybody's wrong in this. And that's why I think a lot of Astros fans have reacted the way they have about this book, is because like we don't want to hear about the underpinnings of what goes on in the organization. They're human, they have egos. There was apparently dissension among the ranks, and like Mr. JC Will says, it sells books. So
right,
my thing is, I still have a great respect for AJ Hinch. I'm not so much. I respect a whole lot of Cora, but I can't really judge the situation, Eric, because I don't know everything there is. But the problem this book brings up is it creates more fodder for the opponents and for the opposing side to say, see, I told you it wasn't just a trash can. They're not this honorable organization. Look at all this infighting. And with one of their TV guys, oh my God, I just like, to me, it's like, who wins here? You know,
Right.
I just, I don't know. Maybe I'll read maybe I'll read more of these excerpts, and it may actually tune me out from actually reading the book, because right now it sounds like the Astros are the headline. I know it's about other teams.
No, the Astros are the headline, but
I know.
they apparently they mention how the other teams do bad stuff, but it is about
You
the
know what's
Houston
funny
Astros.
is they mention it, but do they have other inner? Well, I guess Drellich, to his credit, was like the beat guy. So he has all the Astros inside stuff, right? He wasn't there when the Dodgers
Right.
had their, but still, this stuff just.
Well, they mentioned the stuff about JT Watkins with the Red Sox, and how he was relaying signs with the Red Sox, and how he was suspended, but the Red Sox players said, "Don't worry, we got you. We're going to go and pay you because you helped us." And so
Well,
that's
yeah, I
in the book
mean,
too.
it's like our man Credit Key says. He's like, I mean, I think every great franchise has some craziness. I mean, let me tell you, if we were to write a book and expose every franchise for every disagreement they had, the world would be shocked. Just like with the government people, hey, you don't really want to know what's in those top secret documents. I'm just telling you, there's stuff that goes on, right?
Right.
I mean, and like, what is the benefit to baseball in exposing it? Like, trust me, if you want to dig, baseball's got some skeletons. You want to go look into RICO charges. You want to go look into the way some of these players are treated from other countries throughout Major League Baseball. And I mean, there's all kinds of dirt we can dig up. My problem is no other team has come under the same scrutiny as the Houston Astros, even the Red Sox, who also won. Because the argument I get every time is, well, it's because the Astros won. No, let's be honest. It's because the Astros beat the Dodgers, the Red Sox, and the Yankees, the three powerhouses in Major League Baseball. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. The Astros beating the powers that be. And that's, if they would have beat the Orioles, or to go to the World Series against the Diamondbacks, nobody would give a crap about this.
No,
Nobody would
I think
care.
it's because a player came out and tattled, and
Well,
once
but what
that
I'm
player came
saying
out,
is,
that gives out more credibility. Because Ken Rosenthal, Evan Drell could have come out and said, "Sources say," but when you have a face to that source, somebody who's on that team and who accepted the World Series ring, but then a few years later said, "Yeah, well, they're doing this," then that puts a little bit more credibility. And yes, you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong, but the fact that the reason why this blew up as much as it was because you had a face to the accusation.
well, that's true. That's true. But we also had a face in Boston, and they basically threw a clubhouse guy under the bus, and then they actually paid him and told him they were going to take care of him after they let him go, because they knew they had done him wrong because they threw him under the bus. And I get, yeah, it's because we won, but the Red Sox also won. Why aren't they? Because they're a storied franchise.
Right.
We're That's my point. We're an easy target. We're not the Dodgers, we're not the Yankees, we're not the Red Sox. But I love it because it just gives faith. You know what? It's going to give more hatred out there, and they're going to keep booing, and Altuve is going to keep beating them, and Framber's going to keep shutting them out. And we got Christian Javier, and we've got Jordan Alvarez, and we got Dusty Baker, and we're going to run this thing back, guys. And all these trades and all these moves the Mets and the Yankees and the Mariners make, it's not going to mean a hill of beans, because sitting at the top of the hill at the end of the day, the Houston Astros. You hate us because you ain't us. It's us versus everybody.
Right. I can't wait for the whole whatever slogan to come back at. And I was in Galveston this weekend, and there's a hat that they embroidered on it, and on that hat was "We Want Houston." And I would love for it to be able for I would love for it, the slogan for this year to be "We Want Houston." I doubt that would be it. That's because
That
that's
would
a
be
lot.
great. That would be great. So, hey, you
So,
know what, Eric? All this talking makes me want a Built Bar, because Built Bar is the best tasting bar in the land, and they have some amazing flavors that I want to tell our listeners about. They have unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. That's right. If you haven't heard the macros, you got to check these out. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now, I've told you in the past to go to built.com, and you can still do that. But right now, I need you to run to Sam's Club or to Walmart and grab you a box. If you go to Walmart, go past the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4 box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, and coconut puffs. Or if you go to Sam's Club, grab your 13-bar box of our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. That way you can thank me later. So check out builtbar.com or built.com, or go to Sam's and Walmart and get those amazing flavors today.
All right, so that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. Make sure you tune into us every day. We are your only daily Locked On Astros podcast or Astros podcast out there. And make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and listen to us on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, and go and check out Lindsey Crosby on the Locked On MLB Prospects. He does a great job just talking about the MLB stars of tomorrow, and I'm sure he'll be talking about a lot of the Astros few of tomorrow. So, guys, that's all we got for this edition of the Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. He is Brett Chancey. We are the Locked On Astros podcast, and go Astros.
We're back. Is it not going?